Alright, hello. Welcome back. I'm going to go over my top 5 reads for 2025. 2025 is the year that I started reading quite religiously. I literally started on New Year's of 2024, going into the first of the year. And we're coming up over my 1-year anniversary of my return to books. I was very into reading in elementary school, but as soon as they made reading mandatory, I kind of fell off. However, back with a vengeance, I've read more books than I ever have in the entirety of my life in this 1 year. So I'm gonna go over my top reads, in my opinion, and then I will say I'm kind of cheating. I am including series on my list just because I feel like whether it's telling a more complete story if you read the entire series, or the impact that the series as a whole had on me. Alright, so starting off, we have Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. So this book is about a boy and his lifelong journey for meaning. He tries to find that in religion, then he kind of tries to devoid all wants and desires from his life, and then he kind of moves on to hedonism and just kind of giving into the joys of the world. It takes him a while to kind of reach that conclusion of what meaning is in a human life, and he does a lot of horrible things. And I love that in this little novella that so much happens. You see a man's whole entire life, essentially. I think it leaves such a profound message with the reader, even though this one can come off more of a spiritual journey rather than philosophical ideas that I tend to be drawn to. I did enjoy this immensely. I think it's one of those books that I could probably revisit later on in life and gain something new. I am possibly looking forward to collecting more in terms of translations, because I did enjoy this one, but I think that there were some moments that my reading was kind of hindered by the translation, and I'm just kind of curious to see the other ways that people can word this novella. Alright, so next up we got Flowers for Algernon. Charlie Gordon was born with a ridiculously low IQ, and so that makes him the perfect specimen for a experimental surgery that will increase his IQ. What I like about this book is that I think this thing holds a mirror to not only the reader, but I think society as a whole, in terms of how we treat people, whether or not they kind of live up to a certain expectation that we have. And I love that it also shows both ends of that spectrum. As Charlie gains a higher IQ, things begin to change for him. I think that's such an interesting journey. I think the ending of this book left me so emotionally scarred, but in a good way. I think it was very earned. I absolutely love this book. Alright, so next up we got one of the first series that I am cheating with, and that is The Dark Prophet Saga by J. Zachary Pike. This feels very D&D-esque. I love all the characters, all their little quirks. I think the economic and financial world building is so interesting because the adventuring parties are invested in, and they go out, they defeat the dragon, they collect the loot, and those investors kind of get to reap in those rewards, and that's how the economy works in this world. I think it's so clever. This book is definitely very funny. I love all the characters, all the different perspectives. I think Orconomics is probably the shortest one out of the 3, but it's probably my favorite one. It has emotion, it has comedy, it has just, I think, decent writing from someone I don't hear talked about a lot. You follow that up with Son of a Lich, Dragonfired. These are not giant books in terms of fantasy, and I think they're excellently written. I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of how this world works, and this is what got me into reading, so I'm always going to be, singing its praise. Alright, next up we got Kings of the Wild. Now, I could have included Bloody Rose because it's technically part of the series. However, I think Kings of the Wild can stand on its own. I think it does it very well. Just as a solo book on its own, I think it's very fast-paced. I think the action is amazing. The comedy is amazing. Nicholas Ames is a great writer. I loved all the characters. I forget the wizard's name, but particularly he was probably my favorite character out of everyone in the party. I think more people should be talking about it. Amazing. And then finally, the second cheat on my list, I'm going with the Red Rising trilogy, the first three. Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star. Absolutely my favorite, I guess, trilogy so far, because I have not finished the next book, Iron Gold. Golden Sun is by far my favorite book that I have read this year, and because of that, in my life. Red Rising was good. I think it had some pacing issues, but I feel like because of the story taking place in essentially one spot, that was kind of the reason for it. But I think the ending and the beginning were pretty good, leading to Golden Sun, which is so much better. It's like the Infinity War of books. Moving on to Morning Star, it was a very satisfying ending, and I think it is one of the most emotional ones out of the whole trilogy. It's just very depressing at times, and I've come to love Pierce Brown so much. I think his works are amazing. I'm currently 100 pages into Iron Gold, and I'm excited to see how he completely destroys my heart. This is by far my favorites. I'm looking forward to reading way more sci-fi, way more fantasy. I read a lot of philosophy this past year. There's a ton of books that I want to read next year. But yeah, guys, thanks for being here. See you next time.